The day the aliens came, Jia Kim was working late in her lab at the International Space Coalition. It was a warm summer night in Seoul. The windows were open, letting in a soft breeze that carried the sounds of the city. Jia looked up from her computer when the building began to shake. Books fell from shelves. Her coffee spilled across her desk. Earthquake? She wondered, grabbing the edge of her desk. Then the sky outside turned dark, as if someone had switched off the sun. Jia ran to the window and looked up. A massive ship hung in the air above Seoul. It was bigger than any building Jia had ever seen. Dark metal with strange lights moving across its surface. And it wasn't alone. 6 more ships appeared, spreading out across the sky. Jia's phone rang. It was her boss, Director Yoon. "Jia, get to the main conference room now," he said, his voice shaking. "They want to talk to us." "Who does?" Jia asked. "The aliens. They're calling themselves the 7 Kings." 3 hours later, Jia sat in a large room in the government building. Scientists, military leaders, and politicians from around the world filled the chairs. Many looked scared. Some were crying. On a large screen, they had watched the aliens' first message. "People of Earth," a strange voice had said, "we are the 7 Kings of the Galactic Confederation. We have watched your world for many years. Now we have come to welcome you into our empire." It wasn't really a welcome, Jia thought. The kings had made it clear that Earth would join them or be destroyed. Now the meeting room doors opened. Everyone fell silent. 7 tall figures walked in. They looked almost human, but wrong in ways Jia couldn't quite name. Their skin came in colors Jia had never seen on a person: deep purple, burning red, cold silver. Their eyes were too large, their fingers too long. The tallest one spoke. His skin was dark green with gold patterns. 6 yellow eyes blinked at different times. "I am Supreme King Draz," he said. His voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We are pleased you have agreed to join our empire." No one had agreed to anything, Jia thought. But no one spoke up. Draz continued. "Earth will benefit greatly from our rule. We will share some of our technology. We will protect you from dangerous species. In return, you will provide us with resources and workers." Jia listened as Draz explained how things would work. Humans would not be allowed to leave Earth without permission. King's officials would oversee all governments. Earth would pay heavy taxes to the empire. "This is not a negotiation," Draz said. "This is a gift. Many worlds wait thousands of years for our attention." Jia looked around. The world leaders seemed frozen with fear. No one was asking questions. No one was standing up for Earth. Before she could stop herself, Jia raised her hand. All 6 of Draz's eyes turned to her. "Yes, small female?" Jia stood up. "My name is Jia Kim. I'm an astrophysicist and xenolinguistics specialist." "A scientist," Draz said, sounding amused. "How charming." "You say you're giving us a gift," Jia said, "but it sounds like you're taking our freedom." The room went deadly silent. The world leaders looked horrified. The other kings shifted, moving closer to Draz. "Freedom is an illusion," Draz said. "We offer protection and advancement." "You mentioned sharing technology," Jia continued. "What kind of technology?" "Technology beyond your understanding," a red-skinned king said. "Our ships can travel between stars in days. Our weapons can destroy planets. Our medicine can extend life for centuries." Jia nodded. "May I see some proof of this technology?" The kings looked at each other. Draz made a strange gesture with his long fingers, and a small device appeared floating in the air. It projected images of strange machines and ships. "Our empire spans 700 worlds," Draz said. "All benefit from our rule." Jia studied the images carefully. Something wasn't right. "The propulsion system on that ship," she said, pointing. "It looks like it uses quantum field manipulation. But the field stabilizers are placed incorrectly for that to work." The red-skinned king moved forward. "Humans cannot possibly understand." "And these weapons," Jia continued. "You claim they can destroy planets, but the energy output shown here is barely enough to power a small city." The kings were no longer looking amused. Draz waved away the floating device. Your primitive understanding is limited, he said coldly. Perhaps, Gia agreed. But basic physics works the same everywhere in the universe, and what you're showing us doesn't add up. A ripple of whispers spread through the human delegates. The kings looked at each other again, this time with concern. You dare question us? Draz's voice became dangerous. We who have ruled the stars for 10,000 years? Gia didn't back down. I'm a scientist. Questioning is what I do. One of the world leaders, the president of Brazil, stood up. Dr. Kim, please sit down. We mustn't anger our guests. But Gia had seen something in the king's reaction. They were uncomfortable with her questions, which meant they might be hiding something. If you truly want to help humanity, she said, then prove it. Show us real technology. Explain how it works. Let us learn from you as equals. Draz's 6 eyes narrowed. Equals? You are children playing with sticks. We mastered space travel when your ancestors still lived in caves. Then it should be easy to prove, Gia said. Unless you can't. The room temperature seemed to drop. The king's faces showed anger, but something else too. Was it fear? Enough, Draz shouted. The floor shook. We did not come to be questioned by lesser beings. He turned to the world leaders. Control your people, or we will show you how the kings deal with disrespect. The meeting ended abruptly. The kings left, their movements stiff with anger. As everyone filed out of the room, Director Yoon grabbed Gia's arm. What were you thinking? He hissed. You may have doomed us all. Something's not right, Gia said. Their technology doesn't make sense. And did you see how angry they got when I asked for proof? Real scientists love to explain their work. They're not scientists, they're kings, Yoon said. And kings don't like being questioned. Gia thought about this as she walked back to her office. The night sky was hidden behind the massive alien ships. People hurried through the streets looking up with fear. Kings or not, she muttered to herself. The laws of physics apply to everyone. Back in her lab, Gia pulled up the recordings of the meeting. She studied every image, every word the kings had said. The more she looked, the more problems she found. Her phone rang again. It was Han Sol Park, her colleague and friend. Gia, everyone's talking about what you did, he said. Some people think you're a hero. Others want to throw you to the aliens to save themselves. Han Sol, I need your help, Gia said. There's something wrong with the king's story. Their technology doesn't make sense. Their claims about their empire don't add up. What are you saying? I'm saying, Gia took a deep breath, that the mighty 7 kings might be lying to us. Little did Gia know that her questions had already set events in motion that would shake the king's empire to its core. The girl who mocked kings was about to become the woman who destroyed them. The morning after the meeting with the 7 kings, Gia woke up to her face on every screen in Seoul. News channels showed the clip of her questioning the kings over and over. Some called her brave. Others called her foolish. The woman who stood up to aliens, read one headline. Has Gia Kim doomed Earth? Asked another. Gia turned off her phone and looked out her apartment window. The enormous alien ships still hung in the sky like dark clouds. She felt small, but not afraid. Not yet. Her phone rang. It was Han Sol. Gia, turn on your TV, now. She did. The Supreme King Draz was speaking from his ship. His gray face filled the screen. The human female who spoke against us must be handed over for re-education, he said. This is not a request. You have 24 hours. Gia's heart beat faster. She knew what re-education meant. No one who questioned the kings ever returned the same. Her doorbell rang. Gia jumped. Through the peephole, she saw men in dark suits. Dr. Kim, this is Agent Lee from the National Security Office. We need to talk. Gia grabbed her emergency bag, the one she kept packed since her days as a field researcher. She slipped out the back window onto the fire escape. As she climbed down, she heard her front door being broken open. 3 hours later, Gia sat in a small coffee shop on the outskirts of Seoul. She wore a hat and sunglasses. Her phone was off, the battery removed. She had been trained for remote fieldwork, how to stay off the grid when necessary. She never thought she would use these skills in her own city. The door opened, and Han Sol walked in. He was a tall man, with kind eyes, Jia's closest friend at the Space Coalition. He sat across from her. "The government is looking everywhere for you," he said quietly. "They want to hand you over." "And you? Are you here to take me in?" Jia asked. Han Sol shook his head. "I'm here to help you. But we don't have much time." He slid a small device across the table. "This is a secure drive with everything we have. On the King's technology. I thought you might want to keep working." Jia smiled for the first time that day. Han Sol knew her well. She would not hide and do nothing. "I have a place you can go," he said. "My uncle's old fishing cabin near Busan. No one has used it for years." The cabin was small but clean. It sat by a lake, far from any main road. Jia set up her equipment. A powerful laptop, portable satellite uplink, and the data drive Han Sol had given her. For 2 weeks she stayed there, only going out for supplies at night. She studied the King's technology using the data collected during first contact. Something wasn't right. "They're ship engines," she muttered to herself. "The design is Arcturian. But the King said they conquered the Arcturians centuries ago." She found more examples. Communication systems from one species, weapons from another. The Kings hadn't invented these things. They had taken them. Then she found something even more interesting. The King's ships had weaknesses. Many weaknesses. Their shields had gaps. Their computers were vulnerable to certain signals. "They're not gods," Jia said to herself. "They're thieves, and not very good ones." She documented everything, preparing a report that would expose the Kings. But before she could send it, she heard the sound of engines overhead. Through the cabin window, Jia saw 3 black drones hovering over the lake. They were not human-made. They moved too smoothly, too quietly. The hunter drones had found her. Jia ran into the woods behind the cabin, clutching her laptop and a small bag. The drones followed, their red scanning lights sweeping through the trees. She made it to the road where she had hidden a motorcycle. As she sped away, one of the drones fired. The shot missed her but hit a nearby house. It exploded in flames. They don't care who they hurt, she realized. Anger replaced her fear. By dawn, reports came in from around the world. The King's drones were everywhere, destroying buildings, hurting people, all in search of one woman. Jia hid in an abandoned subway tunnel in Seoul. She used her satellite link to call Han Sol. "The Kings are attacking civilians," she said. "Because of me." "Not because of you," Han Sol corrected. "Because they're afraid of you, of what you know. I can't keep running. More people will get hurt." Jia had made a decision. "I need to send you my findings before I'm caught." "What are you planning?" "I'm going to let them take me," Han Sol argued, but Jia's mind was made up. She sent him all her research on the King's stolen technology and their weaknesses. "There's one more thing," she said. "I'm going to make a broadcast. When it airs, look for patterns in my words. I'll hide a message for you." 3 hours later, Jia stood in a busy public square in downtown Seoul. People gasped when they recognized her. Some backed away in fear. She took out a small device and pressed a button. Suddenly, her face appeared on every digital screen in the square. Her signal was hijacking the local networks. "People of Earth," she said calmly. "My name is Jia Kim. The Kings are looking for me because I questioned them, but there's something everyone should know about our new rulers." She began explaining what she had discovered, how the Kings stole technology, how they weren't as powerful as they claimed. She spoke clearly, carefully choosing her words to hide a coded message for Han Sol. Their power comes from fear, not strength. Their empire is built on lies, not advanced science. Remember, even the tallest tower falls if its base is weak. 5 minutes into her broadcast, the screens went dark. People looked up as a large shadow covered the square. One of the King's ships hovered above them. A beam of light shot down, surrounding Jia. People scattered, screaming. But Jia stood still, her face calm. "This isn't over," she said loudly as the light lifted her off the ground. The crowd watched, in silence as Gia disappeared into the ship. On the King's mothership, Gia was led through long corridors by guards with 4 arms and scaly skin. They brought her to a round room with a glass floor. Below, she could see Earth, beautiful and blue. Supreme King Draz sat on a floating throne. He looked at Gia with 6 yellow eyes. "The human who thinks she is clever," he said. His voice was like stones grinding together. "The king who thinks he is a god," Gia replied. Draz hissed. "You will learn respect in your cell. By the time we are done with you, you will worship us like all the others." "I don't think so," Gia said. "Your prison can't hold the truth, and the truth is what will destroy you." Draz laughed. "Take her to the breaking chambers." As the guards led her away, Gia felt afraid, but also hopeful. She had planted the seeds of rebellion. Hansol would decode her message. And on the ship, she might find allies, others who had stood against the kings. The guards stopped at a cell door. Inside, Gia saw several aliens of different species. They looked at her with surprise. "A human?" one of them whispered. The guards pushed her in and sealed the door. Gia looked at her fellow prisoners and smiled. "My name is Gia Kim," she said, "and I think we have work to do." One of the aliens stepped forward. He was tall with blue skin and 4 arms. "I am Taejo," he said, "and we have been waiting for someone like you for a very long time." The hunt had ended, but Gia's fight was just beginning. Gia stared at the cell that would be her new home. The walls glowed with a soft blue light. There were no windows, only smooth metal on all sides. 5 other prisoners watched her carefully. "So you're the human who made the kings angry," said Taejo. His blue skin wrinkled when he smiled. "We heard about you even in here." "How long have you been prisoners?" Gia asked. "I have been here for 12 of your Earth years," said Taejo. "Some have been here longer." A small creature with green scales and large eyes spoke next. "I am Nara. I was a scientist on my world. I questioned the king's science. That was 20 years ago." Gia looked at each prisoner. Besides Taejo and Nara, there was a tall, thin being with silver skin named Locke, a furry creature called Pel, and a floating ball of light that called itself Mira. "We are all the same here," Taejo explained. "Scientists, teachers, leaders, people who ask questions the kings did not want asked." Before Gia could ask more questions, the cell door slid open. 2 guards entered. "Human," one said. "Come. With us, the breaking begins now." The guards took Gia to a round room with a single chair in the center. They strapped her in and placed a metal helmet on her head. "The breaking is simple," a voice said over speakers. "We will show you truth. When you accept it, you may leave." The helmet hummed. Suddenly, Gia wasn't in the room anymore. She stood in a beautiful garden. The 7 kings walked toward her, smiling. "Welcome, Gia," said King Draz. His voice was kind now. "We want to show you why we are here to help Earth." They showed her images of a peaceful galaxy under their rule. They showed her Earth growing more advanced with their help. They showed her a future where she worked with them as a respected scientist. "All you need to do is admit you were wrong," Draz said. "Tell your people we are good and wise rulers." Gia looked carefully at the garden around her. The flowers were too perfect. The light came from nowhere, and the kings, they smiled too much. "This isn't real," she said. "This is a simulation." The garden flickered. Draz's smile disappeared. "You cannot fight the truth," he said, his voice harder now. "No," Gia agreed. "But this isn't truth. I'm a scientist. I know the difference between facts and wishes." The garden vanished. Gia was back in the round room. A different king entered, this one with red skin and 4 eyes. "Interesting," he said. "Most species break in the first session. Humans must be more stubborn." "Or maybe your lies are just bad," Gia said. The king hissed. "Take her back to her cell. We will try again tomorrow." When Gia returned to the cell, the other prisoners gathered around her. "You're back so soon?" Taejo asked, surprised. "The first breaking usually lasts many hours." They tried to show me a fake reality where the kings were good, Gia explained. It wasn't very convincing. Nara's large eyes blinked rapidly. It took me weeks to see through their simulations. How did you know so quickly? Gia smiled. On Earth, we have virtual reality games. Plus, I'm trained to look for patterns in data. Their simulation had too many perfect patterns. The prisoners looked at each other with new hope. Tell us about Earth, Locke said. Is it true humans question everything? Gia laughed. Not everyone. But yes, many of us are taught to ask questions from a young age, to look for evidence, to not just believe what we're told. That is why the kings fear you, Taijo said. On many worlds, people are taught to obey, not question. As they talked, Gia studied the cell. She noticed small details. The way the light panels worked, how the door sealed, the pattern of guard rotations. Do you know anything about the ship's systems? She asked the group. Pell, the furry creature, nodded. I fixed their machines before. I was imprisoned, I know how some things work. And I understand their computer language, added Mira, the ball of light. Gia's eyes lit up. Then maybe we can do more than just sit here. For the next few days, Gia endured the breaking sessions. Each time the kings tried new ways to make her believe their lies. They showed her Earth being destroyed because she wouldn't cooperate. They showed her friends and family suffering, but each time Gia found the flaws in their simulations, and each time she learned more about how the king's technology worked. Between sessions, she and her cellmates shared knowledge. Piece by piece, they built a plan. The king's communication system connects all their ships and all planets in their empire, Taijo explained one night. If we could access it, we could tell everyone the truth. Gia finished. Nara looked nervous. But how? We're locked in this cell. Gia smiled. The kings make a big mistake. They think we're broken and hopeless, so they don't watch us carefully enough. She pulled out a small metal object she had stolen from the breaking room. And they don't know that humans are good at making tools from almost nothing. 7 breaking sessions later, Gia had collected enough stolen parts to build a small device. Pell helped her put it together, while Mira taught her the basics of the king's computer language. This should let us tap into the ship's information system, Gia explained. Not enough to send messages yet, but enough to learn more. That night, while the guards thought they were sleeping, Gia and her friends activated the device. It projected a stream of data onto the wall. These are ship reports, Mira translated. Look at this, reports from all planets in the King's Empire. Gia read quickly. There are rebellions starting on several worlds. People are questioning the kings. Because of your broadcast, Taijo said. Word is spreading. As they dug deeper into the files, they found something shocking. These aren't the true leaders of their species, Gia said in surprise. The 7 kings were once criminals on their own worlds. They stole technology during a time of crisis and set themselves up as rulers. They keep all species separate and afraid of each other, Nara added, reading more files. They tell each world that the others are dangerous. Gia sat back, thinking hard. So their whole empire is built on lies. A message flashed across their screen. A security alert. Guards were coming to check cells. They quickly hid the device. When the guards passed, finding nothing unusual, the prisoners looked at each other with new determination. We need to send this information to everyone, Gia said, but we'll need access to the main communication room. Taijo nodded. I know where it is. I was taken there once when they tried to make me send a false message to my people. Then we need a way out of this cell, Gia said. Pell grinned, showing sharp teeth. Leave that to me. On Earth, Hansol had decoded Gia's hidden message from her broadcast. He gathered scientists from around the world in a secret online meeting. Gia found weaknesses in the king's technology, he told them. She believed humans could exploit these weaknesses to defend Earth. He showed them Gia's research. The scientists began working day and night on a defense system based on her findings. If the kings decide to punish Earth, Hansol said, we need to be ready. As they worked, news came from other parts of the world. Strange signals were being detected from the king's ships. Something was happening up there. Han Sol looked up at the sky where the massive ships hung like dark stars. "Hold on, Jia," he whispered. "We are working as fast as we can." Back on the mothership, Jia stood in front of the cell door. Pell had built a device from parts they had all collected. It would override the door lock, but only for a few seconds. "Remember the plan," Jia said to her friends. "If we can reach the communication center, we can tell the truth to the entire galaxy." "And if we fail?" Nara asked nervously. Jia looked at each of her fellow prisoners. In just a short time, they had become a team, a family. Then others will. "Continue after us," she said, "but I don't plan to fail." She nodded to Pell, who activated the device. The cell door slid open. Jia and her friends moved quickly and quietly into the corridor. The ship's night cycle was in effect, with lights dimmed and fewer guards on duty. "This way," Tejo whispered, leading them down the long hallway. His forearms helped him move silently along the walls. "The communication center is 3 levels up." Nara used her special ability to sense heat signatures. "2 guards ahead," she warned. The group pressed against the wall in a dark corner. The guards walked past, talking about their homeworlds. They didn't notice the escaped prisoners. "We need to use the lift tube," Taijo said, pointing to a glowing circle on the floor ahead. Jia nodded. "Pell, can you make it take us up without alerting security?" The furry engineer pulled out the small device they had built. "I can try." They reached the lift tube. Pell connected his device to a panel on the wall. The circle on the floor glowed brighter, and a beam of light appeared. "Step into the light," Taijo explained to Jia. "It will carry us up." One by one, they entered the beam and floated upward. They passed one level, then another. Just as they reached the 3rd level, an alarm started blaring. "They've discovered we're missing," Mira said, her ball of light form pulsing with worry. They hurried out of the lift tube into another corridor. This one was wider, with important-looking doors on both sides. "The communication center is at the end," Taijo said. They heard shouts and running footsteps. Guards were coming from both directions. "In here." Locke pulled open a door and they all rushed into a dark room. Jia found herself surrounded by rows of strange containers. Each one held a sleeping alien of a different species. "What is this place?" she asked. "Storage," Nara said sadly. "These are other beings who questioned the kings. They are kept asleep until needed." "Needed for what?" "For the king's experiments," Tejo explained. "Or as examples to show what happens to those who rebel." Jia felt cold anger building inside her. "We need to wake them." "There's no time," Locke said. "The guards will find us soon." "Wait." Jia looked closer at the containers. "These are connected to the ship's main system. If we reach the communication center, we might be able to release them all at once." They heard guards outside the door. "We need another way out," Jia said, looking around. Mira floated up to the ceiling. "There's a maintenance tunnel here. It might lead closer to the communication center." With Mira lighting the way, they crawled through the narrow tunnel. It was hot and dusty, clearly not meant for regular use. "The kings don't expect anyone to use these tunnels," Taijo explained. "They think too highly of themselves to imagine crawling through dirt." After what seemed like hours, Mira stopped. "I sense a large open space below us. It might be the communication center." Pell carefully removed a panel from the floor of the tunnel. They looked down into a massive room filled with glowing screens and control panels. Only 3 kings were present, along with a few guards. "We need a distraction," Jia whispered. Locke smiled. "I can provide that." The silver-skinned alien closed his eyes and suddenly vanished. A moment later, they heard shouts of alarm from the far side of the communication center. "Intruder!" yelled one of the kings. "Secure the emergency protocols." Most of the guards ran toward the commotion. Jia and the others dropped down from the tunnel, landing behind a large control station. "Mira, can you interface with their system?" Jia asked. The ball of light stretched thin tendrils into the control panel. Yes, but I need time. We'll give you time, Taijo said, picking up a tool from the floor. Jia, tell me which controls to damage. Jia had studied the king's technology. She pointed to several spots. Those connect to their security systems. Breaking them will buy us more time. While Taijo worked, Jia looked at the screens. One showed Earth, with strange markings around it. They're planning something, she realized. Something big. Suddenly, an energy blast hit near them. One of the kings had spotted them. Humans, he roared, always causing trouble. Pell jumped out and threw a piece of equipment at the king, hitting him in the head. The king stumbled back. Hurry, Mira, Jia called. I'm in their system, Mira reported. What am I looking for? Find files about the king's true identities, and look for their plans for Earth. Mira's light pulsed faster as she searched. Found them. The kings were once prisoners themselves. They escaped during a galaxy-wide crisis and stole technology from the true leaders of their worlds. Copy everything, Jia said. We need proof. More guards entered the room. Taijo and Pell fought them off while Nara used her heat sense to warn of more coming. Jia, Mira called. I found something terrible. The kings are planning to destroy Earth as an example to other worlds. Jia's heart raced. When? In less than one Earth day. They've already sent the command to their fleet. Jia thought quickly. Can you send a message to Earth? To warn them? Yes, but it won't be secure. The kings will hear it too. That's what I'm counting on, Jia said. Send this message to the frequency I give you. It's Hansol's secure channel. As Jia dictated her message, more guards flooded the room. Locke reappeared beside them, breathing hard. We can't hold them off much longer, he said. Almost done, Mira reported. Jia looked at the main control panel. Mira, can you access the ship-wide communication system? The one that broadcasts to all ships and planets? Yes, but only for a short time before they lock me out. That's all we need. Jia grabbed a communication device from the panel. Get ready to connect me to every world in their empire. On Earth, Hansol received Jia's message. He immediately called the group of scientists working on Earth's defenses. The kings are planning to attack, he told them. We need to activate the defense system now. The scientists had been working day and night on a system based on Jia's research. It used the king's own technology against them, specifically the weakness in their shields that Jia had discovered. The system isn't fully tested, one scientist warned. We don't have time for testing, Hansol replied. Jia says they're coming now. He gave the order to activate the defense system. All around Earth, hidden devices powered up, ready to protect the planet. Back on the mothership, Jia stood before the main communication panel. Taijo, Pell, and Locke formed a protective circle around her and Mira, fighting off guards. Broadcasting now, Mira said. You're connected to every ship and planet. In the King's Empire, Jia took a deep breath and began to speak. People of all worlds, my name is Jia Kim from Earth. The kings have lied to you. They are not your rightful rulers. They were once criminals who stole power during a time of crisis. On screens throughout the room, Jia could see her face appearing on thousands of worlds. Aliens of all kinds were watching, listening. The kings keep us apart, telling each species that the others are dangerous. This is a lie. I stand here with friends from 5 different worlds. We have worked together, we have become family. Nara cried out as a guard's weapon grazed her. Taijo knocked the guard down, but more were coming. Jia continued urgently. The king's technology is stolen. Their power is built on fear. They plan to destroy Earth as an example, but we will not be silenced. The door to the communication center burst open. Supreme King Draz entered, his face twisted with rage. Cut the transmission, he ordered. I'm sending proof to all worlds, Jia said into the communicator. Files showing the king's true origins, evidence of their lies. Judge for yourselves. Mira glowed brightly. Files sent to all systems. King Draz fired his weapon at the control panel. Sparks flew everywhere. Too late, Jia told him. The truth is out. Draz grabbed Jia by the throat. You have doomed your world, human. Suddenly, the ship shook violently. Warning alarms blared. "Supreme King," a guard called. "Our fleet reports shield failures around Earth. Their weapons won't fire." Draz dropped Gia in shock. "Impossible." On the screens that still worked, Gia saw Earth surrounded by the King's ships, but the ships were floating powerless, their weapons dark. Han Solo had done it. Earth was fighting back. "It's over," Gia told Draz. "Your lies can't protect you anymore." The ship shook again. This time it wasn't from Earth's defenses. "Multiple ships reporting rebellions," a guard announced fearfully. "The subjects are rising up everywhere." Draz looked at the other kings in the room. They backed away from him. "We should negotiate," one of them suggested. "Coward," Draz spat. "We still have power." "Not anymore," Gia said. Around them, the ship continued to shake as the empire of lies began to crumble. Alarms blared throughout the mothership. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The 7 kings gathered in their private chamber, arguing loudly. "This is your fault, Draz," shouted the red-skinned king. "You said the human was just a nuisance." "We should destroy Earth now before more worlds join them," said another king with gray scales. Supreme King Draz slammed his fist on the table. "Our weapons aren't working near Earth. That human female found our weakness." "Then we use the planet crusher," said the smallest king. From a safe distance, Draz nodded slowly. "Yes. We will make an example of Earth. Then the other worlds will fall back in line." The kings didn't notice the small ball of light hiding near the ceiling, listening to every word. In the communication center, Gia and her friends had barricaded the doors. Guards pounded from outside, trying to break in. "The kings are planning to use something called a planet crusher," Mira reported, rejoining the group. "It's their most powerful weapon." "How soon?" Gia asked. "They're preparing it now." Gia turned to the communication panel that was still working. "I need to warn Earth." She sent a quick message to Han Solo, explaining the new threat. Then she turned to her friends. "We need to stop the planet crusher from here," she said. "Any ideas?" Taejo stepped forward. "On my world, before the kings came, I was an engineer who worked on power systems. If the planet crusher uses the same energy source as the rest of the ship, I might be able to disrupt it." "How?" asked Locke. "We overload the main power core," Taejo explained. "It would disable the planet crusher and possibly destroy this ship." Everyone fell silent. "That's suicide," Nara whispered. Gia looked at each of her friends. "I won't ask anyone to stay. Those who want to can try to reach the escape pods." Pell laughed, his furry face crinkling. "And go where? The kings control our worlds. I would rather die free than live as their slave again." One by one, the others nodded in agreement. "Then we have work to do," Gia said. On Earth, Han Solo received Gia's warning about the planet crusher. He gathered the scientists again. "Our current defense only stops their regular weapons," he told them. "This planet crusher is something else." One scientist spoke up. "Gia's notes mentioned something about the king's power systems having a critical flaw. If we send a specific signal pattern, it might disrupt their energy flow." "Can we generate a signal strong enough to reach their mothership?" Han Solo asked. "We would need every broadcast tower on Earth working together," another scientist said. "And even then, it might not be enough." Han Solo thought for a moment. "What if we use their own communication network against them?" Gia said she hacked into it. The scientists looked at each other. It could work. "Send a message to Gia," Han Solo decided. "Tell her to open a channel in their network. We'll send the disruption signal through it." Back on the mothership, Gia and her team moved through the ship's service tunnels toward the main power core. Mira received Han Solo's message. "Earth wants us to open a channel in the King's network," she told Gia. "They have a plan to disrupt the power core from their end." Gia smiled. "Then we'll have 2 chances to stop the planet crusher." They reached a huge door marked with warning symbols. "The main power core is behind this," Taejo said. "It will be heavily guarded." Just then they heard a booming voice over the ship's speakers. It was Supreme King Draz. "Attention all worlds. The rebellion ends now. Watch as we destroy Earth. and know that any world that defies us will meet the same fate. Jia felt a chill. They were out of time. Mira, open that channel for Earth now, she ordered. Pell, can you get us through this door? The furry engineer examined the lock. Yes, but it will take a few minutes. We don't have minutes, Nara said, her large eyes wide with fear. Jia looked around. Then we make a new door. She pointed to some equipment they had gathered along the way, tools and parts that could be turned into a makeshift explosive. Taejo, can you build something that will get us through? The blue-skinned alien nodded. With Pell's help, yes. As they worked, Mira floated near Jia. Channel open. Earth is sending their signal now. Good, Jia said. Now we need to. A loud explosion cut her off, but it wasn't from their bomb. A section of wall nearby had blown apart. Through the smoke stepped King Draz and 4 guards. Found you, Draz hissed. On Earth, Hansol watched as the combined broadcast towers of the planet sent their signal into space. On screens around the world, people could see the King's mothership surrounded by energy distortions. Is it working? Someone asked. Hansol watched the readings. The signal is reaching them, but something's blocking it from fully penetrating their shields. We need more power, a scientist said. We're already using everything we have. Another, replied Hansol, stared at the screens. Jia, he whispered. It's up to you now. In the corridor outside the power core, Jia faced King Draz. The guards had captured Nara and Locke, but Taejo, Pell, and Mira were still free, working frantically on their explosive. Your planet's pathetic attempt to disrupt our power has failed, Draz said, and now you will watch as we destroy your world. He held up a small device, a control panel with a single red button. This activates the planet crusher, he explained. I wanted you to see it happen. Jia stepped forward. Before you do that, I have a question. Draz paused, curious. Speak, human. You call yourselves kings, but you rule through fear, not respect. You steal technology instead of creating it. You lie instead of lead. What kind of kings are you? Draz's yellow eyes narrowed. We are the kind that survive. No, Jia said. You're the kind that destroys, and that's why you'll fail. She glanced behind Draz. The other kings had arrived, looking nervous. Your plan isn't working, Draz, said the red-skinned king. Too many worlds are in rebellion. Once Earth is gone, they will fall in line, Draz insisted, or they will unite. Against us, another king said. Perhaps we should consider peace talks. Draz turned on his fellow kings. Cowards, I knew I couldn't trust you. As the kings argued, Jia caught Taejo's eye. He nodded slightly. The explosive was ready. Jia smiled at Draz. You know the problem with false kings? They always destroy themselves. Draz roared in anger and pressed the red button on his device. Nothing happened. What? He pressed it again and again. Jia laughed. While you were busy catching us, Mira, disconnected your control device. Draz threw the useless controller aside and pulled out a weapon. Then I'll kill you myself. That's when Taejo detonated their explosive. The blast knocked everyone off their feet and blew a hole in the power core door. Now, Jia shouted. Taejo and Pell rushed into the power core room. The kings and guards, recovering from the explosion, followed them. Jia helped Nara and Locke break free from the guards. Get to the escape pods, she told them. Make sure they can't be launched remotely. What about you? Nara asked. I'm going to help Taejo. Inside the power core room, chaos reigned. The kings fought with Taejo and Pell among the glowing energy columns. The core itself was a massive pillar of blue light at the center. Jia ran to one of the control panels. Using what she had learned about the king's technology, she began shutting down safety protocols. Stop her, Draz ordered. But the kings were now fighting among themselves. Some wanted to flee, others to continue the attack on Earth. In the confusion, no one stopped Jia. Taejo reached her side. If we reverse the energy flow, the core will overload, he said. Jia nodded. How long until it explodes? 10 minutes, maybe less. Time to go, she said. They ran from the room, Pell and Mira following. Behind them, the power core began to pulse with unstable energy. Alarms blared even louder than before. All escape pods are on level 2, Tejo said as they ran. They reached the escape pod bay to find Nara and Locke waiting. Other aliens were there too, prisoners they had released along the way. Everyone in, Jia called. As the last people boarded the escape pods, Jia looked back. King Draz stood in the doorway, his clothes torn, his eyes wild with hate. "You've destroyed everything," he said. Jia shook her head. "No, we're saving everything. You were the destroyer." She stepped into the last escape pod with Tejo and the others. The door sealed shut just as Draz lunged forward. The pod launched away from the mothership. Through the window, they watched as the massive ship began to break apart, energy spilling from its core. "The other kings?" Jia asked. "Fighting to the end," Mirror reported, monitoring ship communications. "Some tried to escape, but their own guard stopped them." The mothership exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave pushed their escape pod tumbling through space. 1 week later, Jia stood in a large hall in Seoul. Representatives from 20 alien worlds sat around a circular table. Han Sol stood beside her. "The king's empire has fallen," said Tejo, now representing his world. "For the first time in centuries, our peoples are free to choose their own path." "What happens now?" asked an Earth representative. "We form a new Galactic Council," Nara suggested. "One based on cooperation, not control. And Earth will have an equal voice," added Pelgia stepped forward. "My people have a saying, 'The truth shall set you free.' We discovered that the king's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their lies. By speaking truth, we destroyed those lies." She looked around at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Former